Have you ever had a business idea that was so big that you couldn't even articulate it yourself? You couldn't think of it clearly. It always felt unfinished or that you're supposed to be adding on more. In this video, I'm going to show you a simple way to simplify your big idea so you can actually start building it. Because the truth is, the problem isn't that it's bad. I think the starting point is just too big. And I noticed because I was in this same position a couple months ago. I had this vision. I was so excited about it, but I couldn't explain it for the life of me. It felt messy. Every time I tried to put it on paper, I tried to include everything, every thought that I had in reference to building it. Some people might say, you didn't spend enough time writing. And honestly, in hindsight, I really did. I just didn't have any structure writing, but that's not what this video is about. I realized was the problem wasn't the idea. The problem was I was trying to explain the entire vision instead of the first functionable step. I was able to move from overthinking an idea to actually building a minimum viable product that I'm actually so excited for, because honestly, it took me forever to get out of this overthinking loop into, like, I guess you can consider it a success loop. So the shift that happened was I watched this podcast, I believe it's from The Anatomy of the Dream, and the podcast host said, build the skateboard, not the car. And it seemed so simple, but it was a pattern interrupter for me, and it allowed for me to build the first functionable step for my product. When people have big ideas, they often try to build, I guess you can say, the engine of the car first, because that's the most functional part when you look at the grand scheme of building a full car or building a full business. They try to build the biggest part of the vehicle first, which is the engine. But the problem with the engine is that it doesn't move. It's just one component of the car that requires more parts for it to be functionable, for it to move. A skateboard, on the other hand, is functionable. It moves, it rolls, it's simple, it works. People can use it, people can test it, you can learn from it, you can improve from it. So when she said that, I was like, that's the difference. I was trying to build the engine, the car. I was trying to build the entire vision, not leaving out parts. But I needed to build something that was functionable to eventually get me to the car. And I think this concept applies to any big idea. So if you're watching this and you're like, I see MVP, I hear you say minimal viable product. However, I'm not building a tech company. I think a minimal viable product, minimal viable functionable step, whatever you want to call it, can apply in any industry. So for an example, imagine your big idea is an all women's construction company targeting single women homeowners. I just created that because honestly, I need this. But anyway, if this is your big idea, the skateboard version of that might be starting with one small service. You might say, yeah, that makes sense, instead of starting with the whole company. However, we have to make sure the point of this exercise is that what you start with is actually movable, functionable, testable. So if that service, obviously it can be movable, functionable, and testable, but it has to be for that big vision that you have. So for an example, maybe start with actually homeowner repairs, or teaching that homeowner repairs through workshops, something that you could do probably once a month. Maybe you want to have, or maybe you have some verified contractors and you want to be the connector. So now you're known for the person that do the connecting in the community or online. All of that is going to help you understand the real need behind what you're trying to build, because it's movable and testable, functionable. I said that 1,000 times, but that's the point I'm trying to make. So with that, what is not a skateboard in reference to this all women's construction company targeting women? Something that's not movable for your next step would be, oh, I'm going to go get my licensure. That's not movable. That's not testable. You're not working with the community or the target population that you're trying to serve, or waiting until everything is perfect, waiting until you launch the full company. The key idea in all of this is simple. Choose the idea that gets you to the next step. You don't need the whole car. You just need something that moves, something that you can interact with, something that you can test and improve. So in that way, you go from thinking to testing to doing versus overthinking, waiting, and trying to implement later. Because when something exists, even in the simplest form, you can get feedback. Learning happens. You get the data. You get to improve the idea. And you get to tell people exactly what you're doing.